I'm 82, and I wake up most mornings with the same quiet thought sitting on my chest. I should have let someone stay. It isn't a dramatic kind of regret. It doesn't shout. It's the kind that waits for you when the room is still, when the kettle finishes boiling, and there's no one to ask if they want tea too. I didn't think it would matter this much. Not at my age. Not after 60. I used to believe there was a point where you simply stopped needing certain things. Or maybe I told myself that because it was easier than admitting I was afraid. At 82, time doesn't feel like a long road anymore. It feels like a short hallway with a door I can see clearly now. I don't know when it will open, but I know it will. And when it does, I'll go through it alone. That part was my doing. I'm not telling you this because I think it changes anything for me. It won't. I'm too far along for that. But maybe it explains something I didn't understand when I still had time to make different choices. When I was younger, I wasn't the kind of man people worried about. I had a steady job. Accounting, nothing special, but it paid well enough. I kept things organized. I showed up on time. I didn't drink much. Didn't get into trouble. People would describe me as reliable, which sounds like a compliment, but it's also a kind of quiet sentence. I had relationships, of course, nothing that lasted the way it should have, but there were women who came close, women who sat across from me at dinner tables, who laughed at things I said, who waited for me to say things I never quite did. In my 30s, I thought I was being careful. In my 40s, I thought I was being realistic. By my 50s, I had convinced myself I was simply not built for it. There was always a reason. Work was busy. The timing wasn't right. She wanted something more than I could give, or at least that's what I told myself. It sounded reasonable when I said it out loud. There was one woman, I still remember her clearly. Her name was Farah. She had this way of speaking that made you feel like she was really listening, even when you were saying something ordinary. We met through a mutual friend, nothing arranged, just a dinner where we ended up sitting next to each other. She asked me questions I didn't expect, not the usual ones. Not, what do you do, or where are you from? She asked me if I liked being alone. I remember laughing. I said something like, I've gotten used to it. She didn't laugh back. She said, that's not the same thing. I didn't know what to do with that at the time. We saw each other for a while, a few months, maybe longer, I don't remember exactly. Time felt slower back then, but also less important. She wanted something steady, not complicated, not dramatic, just presence. That was the word she used. Be present, she said once, sitting across from me with her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. I nodded like I understood, but I didn't. I thought presence meant being physically there, sitting in the same room, showing up to dinner, answering calls. What she meant was something else, something I didn't know how to give because I had spent so many years keeping parts of myself separate. I remember the evening she left. It wasn't loud, no shouting, no tears. She stood by the door holding her bag and said, "You're a good man, but you're not here." I said, "I'm standing right in front of you." She shook her head almost gently. "That's not what I mean." I let her go. I told myself it was for the best, that it wouldn't have worked anyway, that she deserved someone more expressive maybe, someone more certain. I went back to my routines, work, evenings alone, weekends that passed quietly. And the thing about routines is they make time disappear without you noticing. You look up one day and realize 10 years have gone somewhere, and you can't point to where they were spent. By the time I reached 60, most of the people I knew were settled, married, children grown, grandchildren starting to appear in photographs they would show me with a kind of tired pride. I wasn't unhappy. That's important to say. I didn't sit around feeling miserable. I had my habits, my space, my silence. Silence can feel like peace if you've lived with it long enough. But there were moments, small ones. A wedding I attended where I didn't know where to sit. A hospital visit to a colleague where his wife adjusted his blanket without being asked. A dinner invitation where I watched people move around each other in a way that didn't require explanation. I would notice these things, but only for a second. Then I'd return to myself. At 60, I remember thinking very clearly, it's too late now. Not for everything, just for that. Relationships felt like something that belonged to a different stage of life. A younger man's effort, a younger man's energy. I told myself I wouldn't know how to start again, that it would be awkward, that people my age already had their histories, their complications. And there was another truth I didn't say out loud. I was afraid of needing someone. It's a strange fear, but it's real. When you built a life around managing on your own, the idea of depending on someone else feels like losing control. So I made a quiet decision. No more trying. No more opening that part of my life again. At the time, it felt like relief. No expectations. No disappointments. No effort required to explain yourself or adjust to someone else's habits. Just me, and the life I already knew how to live. For a while it worked. Years passed. I retired at 67. My days became even quieter, but I didn't mind. I would wake up, make breakfast, read the newspaper, go for a walk. Sometimes I'd sit in a park and watch people pass by without really thinking about them. Evenings were simple. Television, tea, sleep. It wasn't a bad life, just a narrow one. The realization didn't come all at once. It never does. It started with small things becoming heavier. Carrying groceries up the stairs felt different when there was no one to ask for help. Being sick lasted longer, not because of the illness, but because there was no one to notice if you were getting worse. Birthdays became quieter each year, until they were just another day you marked silently in your head. Then came the phone calls that stopped coming. Friends passed away, one by one, not suddenly, not all at once, just over time. You attend a funeral, then another. Then you stop recognizing the names in the announcements. The circle gets smaller, and the silence changes. It's no longer peaceful. It becomes something else. It becomes an absence you can feel. The moment that made it clear came when I was 78. I slipped in the bathroom. Nothing dramatic, just a fall. But I couldn't get up right away. My leg wouldn't cooperate, and I lay there longer than I expected. I remember staring at the ceiling, thinking how quiet everything was. No one knew I was there. No one would check. I eventually managed to pull myself up, slowly, carefully. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time afterward. Not because of the pain, because of the realization. If something worse had happened, that would have been it. That's when the thought first came, clear and undeniable. I had made myself unnecessary to anyone, and that's a dangerous thing to become. After that, mornings felt different. You wake up and there's no voice, no movement, no sign that your presence matters to another person in that immediate, ordinary way. No one asks if you slept well. No one notices if you didn't. I started thinking about Farah again, not in a dramatic way, just small memories. The way she held her cup with both hands, the way she paused before answering a question, as if she was choosing her words carefully, the way she looked at me when she said, "You're not here." I understand now what she meant. I was always keeping a part of myself back, saving it maybe, for a future I assumed would always be there. I thought I had time to learn how to be different, time to become someone who could stay. But time doesn't wait for you to figure things out. It just moves, and then it stops giving you certain chances. What's permanently lost isn't just her. It's the version of me who could have tried again, the man who still had enough years ahead of him to build something with someone else. That man is gone now. At 82, you don't start over. Not really. You adjust, you endure, you accept, but you don't begin again in the same way. There's a weight to that understanding. It doesn't crush you. It just sits there, quietly, every day. I sometimes imagine what it would have been like. Not a perfect life, just a shared one. Someone sitting across from me in the morning. Someone whose habits I would have learned, and who would have learned mine. Small arguments, small reconciliations. A presence that made the days feel witnessed. I don't think I needed anything extraordinary, just someone to stay, and for me to stay in return. If you're listening to this, I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's not my place, and life doesn't follow instructions anyway. But I will say this. There are things you think you can postpone without consequence. Things you believe will still be there when you're ready. Connection is one of those things. It doesn't disappear all at once. It fades, quietly, while you're busy with other parts of your life. And one day you look around and realize there's nothing left to return to. I used to think independence was strength. Now I think it's only part of the story. There's another kind of strength in letting someone matter to you, in allowing yourself to be known, even if it's uncomfortable. I didn't learn that in time, and now I wake up, make my tea, sit by the window, and watch the day begin without me being part of anyone else's. It's a simple life. It's quiet, too quiet sometimes. I don't expect anything to change. I've made my peace with that, in the way you make peace with things that can't be undone. But if there's one thing I carry with me now, it's this small, persistent thought. I should have let someone stay. And maybe more importantly, I should have stayed too.